Today on Hearts of Heroes, flash flooding poses great risk in a small Midwestern town.
Less than an hour, it was completely submerged, the whole neighborhood.
The victims and casualty numbers would have been a whole lot higher if not for the extraordinary courage and selflessness of these first responders.
Then,
uh-oh, here we go.
Every second counts when a violent storm strikes Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody is talking about the potential of a tornado.
With its rolling hills and grass-swept plains, Manhattan, Kansas ranks as one of the best places to live in the United States. At the same time, it is Kansas, so they are susceptible to thunderstorms, tornadoes, and even flash flooding.
When heavy rain caused creeks and rivers to flood overnight, the city woke up in the middle of a danger zone. Luckily, there were heroes ready to respond.
Labor Day in the United States is generally memorable for barbecues and even parades. But in 2018, the long holiday weekend in Manhattan, Kansas would soon be remembered for a much different reason. Well before dawn, meteorologists were tracking a line of storms moving into the area, causing rivers and streams to start rising at alarming rates.
I knew that there was a city to the west of us that was suffering some flooding, and I knew that water was coming our way.
Firefighters mobilized and began evacuations as quickly as they could before those flash floods would soon take over.
We started going door to door about 6:30 in the morning is when we started knocking on doors, which there was no flooding at that time. There was no water in yards or street or anything.
The more the general public can listen to and heed the warnings from our first responders, the more damage control we can accomplish. And then obviously, the better off we'll all be.
Over the next few hours, rain pummeled the low-lying neighborhoods, including Wildcat Creek, where the Garden Grove Senior Living Facility is situated.
I was in the shower, and I heard somebody just knock, knock, knock. It seemed like they were knocking on every door in there. So I was like, let me see what's going on, because I could tell that they were going like from door to door knocking.
Gloria Richardson was told to evacuate her ground floor apartment as soon as possible.
So by the time I got out to the sidewalk, the water was coming up. The water came up just that fast. I was just panicky.
The creek had reached its banks, and Manhattan was about to suffer its third flash flood in the past 11 years.
It was completely submerged, the whole neighborhood. And so people that weren't able to get out really weren't even able to walk out. It came that fast.
I was really extremely shocked when I got to the building and I couldn't even get down the street to my building. It was just cars were submerged, you know, people were stuck.
Not being able to swim, my best bet for me was to go back in, go upstairs to my neighbor, Bonnie.
Complicating the rescue efforts, however, was a new threat.
There was reports that morning of first responders were feeling some shocks when they were getting in the water and stuff. Household wiring is not made for the elements like our equipment is. So when water mixes with household wiring and stuff like that, then there is a possibility of being able to be electrocuted in that instance.
But shutting off the power to a large area may not be as easy as it sounds.
To ensure the safety of those first responders down there, we had to kill the circuit to thousands of people.
So they took their chances and dumped the power, hoping for the best. With the power off, the firefighters could now get their boats in and get the residents out to safety without any major injuries. City officials called this flash flood a 500-year event. And thankfully, the quick actions of the first responders made sure everybody was safe.
None of our residents got hurt, so that was, I thought, amazing that people were able to move that quickly and get out of their apartments and get up to safety. They were wonderful that day and just really stayed calm and helped our residents stay calm, and that was all we could ask for.
The people of Manhattan, Kansas will not forget the Labor Day flash flood of 2018, but they will always remember the bravery and compassion of their first responders.
They were concerned about us, and I felt in my heart that they were angels that were sent to us.
Up next, with the floodwaters gone and everyone safe, people start looking for help to put their lives back together.
She's like, we can fix these. I was like, how could you ever fix them?
But first, here's a tip on how you can be better prepared for disaster.
Flash flood warnings are issued when dangerous floodwaters are either imminent or occurring.
If there's a possibility of flash flooding or other call to evacuate in your area, it's best to be prepared to move to higher ground immediately.
Have a plan in place before water levels rise and potentially cut off evacuation routes. Warnings are there to keep you safe and out of harm's way.
For the people of Manhattan, Kansas, the flash flood of Labor Day weekend 2018 was a life-changing event. Thanks in large part to the town's first responders, there were no fatalities. But as the rain slowed down and the floodwaters began to recede, the extent of the damage became heartbreakingly clear, especially at the Garden Grove Senior Facility.
It was a mess. During the highest point in the water, there was water up, to the windows and submerging cars. Residents' items, things from the community room are just floating all around.
Because the floods came on so fast and so strong, people had very little time to save anything.
For a lot of them, it's probably the worst day of their life. Like, a lot of them lost everything.
There is things in there that's gonna hurt me, like pictures of my daughter, because I had it in, like suitcases and stuff like that, and that water came in and got up in the suitcases.
But fortunately, for those that were living at Garden Grove, another team of specialists was ready to deploy.
All we want is for the residents of Garden Grove is to get their lives back to normal as quickly as possible.
As soon as the water receded, the team from our sponsor Belfour went right to work, removing debris, ripping out waterlogged carpets, and tearing out damaged drywall.
Luckily, we had a team already in place in the Manhattan area, so we were actually here within less than an hour.
That fast response is extremely important because floodwaters are labeled Category 3, or black water, because they are grossly unsanitary. The water can contain sewage, oil from roads, and biohazardous materials.
Anything that comes in contact with floodwater should be disinfected and disposed of.
They were not only devastated by the loss of their home, but for their irreplaceable mementos, like Gloria Richardson's precious family photos.
Her car still had about 4 or 5 inches of water in the trunk, and I could feel the picture frames as I was pulling them out of the car. I told her, I have your pictures. We're gonna save them.
The first step in restoration is a surprising one. The damaged items are immediately put in the freezer for a process called freeze drying.
Whenever it's gotten wet, if you let it dry on its own without a controlled environment, they'll tend to wrinkle or crackle. But if you freeze it right away, it stops any additional damage.
The technicians start the restoration process, carefully separating and cleaning each photo with sponges because they know how valuable these memories are.
In Gloria's case, these memories are important to her, especially since she has a daughter that has passed away.
A few weeks later, after a lot of painstaking work, Sheldon Yellen was delighted to make a special delivery to Gloria in person.
I just want you to know that I heard of your spirit and the perseverance that you have to bounce back and to know that tomorrow's going to be better.
It's just been such a blessing, the way that I was treated through this.
The era rallied the troops to perform some heroic acts. I'd love to ask you to just take your time in opening this box.
To God be the glory. I thank you so much. And I was thinking about these pictures. I cannot thank you all enough for all the stuff that you've done.
This is what we do, preserving memories.
I have to give you a hug.
Gloria.
To God be the glory. That's all I
bless
can
you.
say. God bless you too.
Continue to inspire us all. We're so grateful that you've allowed us the honor of serving you.
With the damage from the Labor Day flash flood being repaired, both in the home and in the heart, the people of Manhattan, Kansas have a lot to be thankful for.
Coming up, a late-night storm in Tulsa sends a community reeling.
Lots of debris, power lines down, power poles across the road.
And a mom of 3 is hit by the storm.
And then you couldn't see nothing, everything just went pitch black.
Oh my goodness.
With an abundance of trees and majestic views of the Ozark Mountains, Tulsa, Oklahoma sits in what is known as green country.
But in August of 2017, this scenic area was rocked by a 6-minute overnight tornado that threw the city into a state of emergency.
Situated on the Arkansas River, Tulsa is the second largest city in Oklahoma. Although it's a major metropolitan area, it still retains a small-town feel. On any given summer night, you can find people enjoying a backyard barbecue, catching a movie at the drive-in theater, or strolling along the Tulsa Riverwalk. But as it turns out, the night of August 5th, 2017 would not be as peaceful. As the sun set that evening, Celia Daniel took the opportunity to meet up with a few friends. On this night, she also brought along her 9-year-old son.
It started raining and we all decided to go to a restaurant. I had my middle boy with me. There was probably about 10 of us there.
While the storm clouds put a damper on their evening, the last thing on anyone's mind was a tornado. After all, it was midsummer, well beyond tornado season.
Typically, sirens would go off from National Weather Service or Tulsa Area Emergency Management to warn us. They're actually designed for when people are outside. It gives people some advance warning to go to shelter.
There was no advance warning, and earlier in the day when they said there might be a thunderstorm, nobody was talking about the potential or possibility of a tornado.
Unaware of the looming danger, Celia and her group decided to order some food at the restaurant and wait out the storm.
We were all checking out, fixing to get ready to leave. Well, when I turned around, it was pouring down rain. I love lightning storms and rain and stuff like that, so I pulled my phone out and started recording. We noticed that things were like moving across the parking lot, like it just started raining like really, really heavy.
Oh my goodness.
A few moments later, Celia captured cell phone footage of a nearby transformer bursting.
Everyone just kind of just starts to run. I grabbed my son and wrapped my body around him, and then you couldn't see nothing, everything just went pitch black.
The tornado smashed through the walls of the restaurant where Celia and her son were sitting at their booth.
And then just not even seconds later, something came through the window and hit me in the back of the head and launched me and my son across the restaurant. I thought it was like in a dream. I kept hearing my son screaming.
Security cameras at a nearby business caught the sheer ferocity of this tornado.
I didn't even realize how badly I was injured or anything like that. The only thing I cared about was getting my son to safety. One of the waiters noticed my right arm. I was just bleeding out. So he took his shirt off and packed it into my arm.
Celia needed urgent medical attention. Luckily, the firemen of Station 25 were ready and on their way. But Celia was losing consciousness fast.
My body was literally just going right then and there. I remember them telling me, no, we're gonna get you out of here. Probably not even 10 minutes later, like, here's the fire department.
They don't stop to think about it. They run in knowing that someone was inside the restaurant that was in dire need of their help. They ran at their own risk, at their own peril, to get her out.
She was a load and go. We got her loaded up and she was on her way to the hospital.
But no one knew yet the true extent of Celia's injuries. Coming up, will the first responders be able to save Celia?
I remember the doctor coming in and telling me, you're lucky you're not paralyzed or even dead.
And with their lives in shambles, how will the people of Tulsa rebuild and recover?
I don't know how we're gonna deal with this.
But first, here's a tip on how you can be better prepared for a disaster.
If you or your loved ones have been involved in a natural disaster, understand that the emotional toll it takes on an individual can be extremely devastating. But there is hope.
Children and older adults are more at risk. So don't neglect the emotional needs of those around you. Everyone experiences emotions differently.
Focus on the here and now, and that you will get through this together. Your health and those around you is of paramount importance. Tomorrow will be better than today.
In the early morning hours of August 6, 2017, a tornado blasted through Tulsa, Oklahoma. The tornado spun up so quickly, there was no time to alert the city that the line of storms had turned tornadic.
Being in August, it was totally surprised. The National Weather Service wasn't reporting anything like that, so we didn't get any kind of warnings.
But Celia Daniel had been in a late-night restaurant when the roof collapsed on her. She was quickly rushed to the hospital.
I think that total spent like 15 hours in surgery. I remember the doctor coming in and telling me, "You're lucky you're not paralyzed or even dead."
Once the immediate danger had passed, folks in Tulsa were discovering just how much damage the tornado had done. Like Jared Joseph, who was on vacation when he got word of the devastation. He soon learned his family's business was one of the hardest hit.
We saw one of the local news guys was talking about the storm and there's some damage here, and then I heard my uncle's voice in the background. I could hear him say, "That's my building right there." And that's when I went, oh boy.
When Jared arrived the next morning, he saw what that tornado had done to his warehouse.
It didn't look that bad at first glance, but then we walked inside and saw that the roof was pretty much completely gone. We knew at that point, this is going to be a big loss, and I don't know how we're going to deal with this.
Not only was the building destroyed, but the trees out front had been uprooted, and they held a special meaning to the family business.
When the family bought the building, that's one of the first things they did was plant trees in the front yard. My uncle planted them. He had watched this place grow with those trees, so he was pretty upset to see them go.
Jared knew he needed help to rebuild.
I saw across the street Belfour working, so I went over there and grabbed a guy and said, "I need you to come talk to me because we need help." Wasn't very long after that, the cleanup process started.
While our sponsor Belfour focused on the task of reconstruction, Jared needed to get his business up and running.
We found a place, we called it the bunker. It was about a 25-foot by maybe 14-foot wide building. We put fold-out tables, put computers on them, got a server up and running. They were all literally working elbow to elbow.
After several months of construction, Jared's business was back and better than ever.
One of the other cool things we were able to do as part of the reconstruction project here, we were able to bring the buildings up to current code. Some of that included putting wheelchair accessible, so we added ramps to both buildings that were not there before.
And there was one final touch to make this project complete.
My mother and father and uncle that have been actively involved in growing this business to where it's at today. They're at the end of their careers and they're retiring and slowing down. So I look at those new trees out there as kind of a new beginning. I'm third generation, so to me that it is. It's a neat thing to have those out there.
In the months after the tornado, Celia Daniel also faced a long road to recovery.
I had to literally sit up for 3 months. Couldn't bend my legs, nothing like that. Couldn't even move.
Despite many difficulties, things are looking up for Celia and her family.
You can either choose to let it knock you down, or you can just keep just trying no matter what, and no matter how hard it is, you just put a smile on your face and keep trying.
Now Celia has the chance to personally thank the men who saved her life.
Celia, right?
Yes, yes.
It's good to meet you.
Were you one of the firefighters?
Yes. Me and Travis were the ones that you initially saw first that opened the door.
I owe you guys everything. Like, I wouldn't be here today and be here for my boys if it wasn't for you guys. My son did this for you guys, and then he signed this.
Okay. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you for saving me and my mom. Well, that's great. Well, tell him thank you very much.
I've been wanting to see him for a long time now and shake their hand and tell them how good of a job they did.
It was very good to meet you.
It was nice meeting you too.
We've seen today just how lucky the survivors of these epic events were to have the heroes around.
And we all can be grateful for those first responders who throw themselves in the middle of danger to save these threatened communities. And for that, we say thank you.
And thank you for watching. We're going to see you next time on Hearts of Heroes.